locally owned. I'm from Amsterdam, so they can expect good football food, baseball food, pizza, wings, and beer. You know, you can bring your kids in and, you know, they can play pool or play the video games, or they can sit with you and watch TV too, because you got the TVs in every dining room. It's such a place that you can come in with your family and sit down. And again, it's family oriented because it's family owned. When you walk in here, it's like a TV show, Cheers. Everybody knows your name. And you can expect that from in here because everybody knows everybody else.
Sideline Guys back here at sidelineguys.recordernews.com, brought to you, as always, by our friends at Crystal Ristorante. They're located at 72 Lion Street here in Amsterdam. www.crystalrist.com on the web. With Michael Kelly, I'm Adam Schinder, and it's Super Bowl time. Saturday night, two huge matchups.
Yeah, two huge matchups starting at Shenandoah for us with that Amsterdam-Burnt Hills rematch. My question to you is, Burnt Hills has probably been the most complete program over the last several years, but are they the underdog going into Saturday night?
It's hard to set a favorite underdog status for this game. The Rams have done everything they've been asked of all year long. They went out week 2, beat Burnt Hills, forced 7 turnovers in that win at Lynch Literacy Academy. It was a huge emotional lift for this Amsterdam program. Got them into the state rankings for the first time since 2007. But since that moment, there probably hasn't been a team that's played as well overall against the level of competition they faced in the Burnt Hills Spartans. They lost to Amsterdam, and the next 2 weeks they went out and beat 2 Class AA playoff teams. Then they went out, they cleaned up the rest of their division schedule, absolutely destroyed Mahonison in the opening round of the playoffs, and then last Friday night at Troy on television, they went out, they beat the fourth-ranked Flying Horses, 4th ranked in the entire state, undefeated. They'd only allowed 31 points all year. Burnt Hills hangs 38 on them in a 38-7 win.
Right, I mean, that was the most impressive Section 2 win all year, no question. I mean, coming off that one, I mean, I guess maybe Burnt Hills is back to that favorite status. I guess, what does Amsterdam have to do, though, to replicate what happened in week 2, knowing that Burnt Hills probably isn't going to turn the ball over 7 times again?
Yeah, you've got to know that you're not going to force 7 turnovers, but they've got to do what they did in that first game for the rest of it. Limit big plays in the run game. Burnt Hills couldn't get off those 15, 20-yard runs that they've been able to gash Amsterdam with in previous years. If you can force them to throw passing situations, this is the biggest game in the career of their junior quarterback Ryan McDonald. Amsterdam really made life miserable for them the first game of the year. He may not be intercepted 4 times like he was in that game, but if you can keep him under pressure, they don't have a ton of weapons in that passing game that they use consistently. That would be Amsterdam's biggest advantage. You want to make Burnt Hills beat you with the pass.
But I guess offensively for the Rams, coming off a week where, yes, they scored 21 points, but probably one of their worst offensive outings since maybe week 2 against Burnt Hills. I guess, how do they bounce back offensively to be able to put up the points to play with this Burnt Hills team?
I think you got to look to big plays. It's been the Amsterdam trademark all year. Burnt Hills is very solid on the line, in the middle of the field. They've got a great linebacker in Dylan Wydronkowski, maybe the best overall football player in all of Section 2. Great lineman in Nick Crescetto. Amsterdam's advantage is going to come on the outside. It's going to come with Matt White and Chris Carbone. It's going to come with Brett Stanovich, who did not play a big role in that first game, maybe finding a way to get him the ball in space, and then Gio Rodriguez finding a way to get those tough yards like he did when the Rams were able to kill off the end of the game against Burnt Hills. And then maybe you're able to throw in a little of the razzle-dazzle that they had. Amsterdam had their only offensive touchdown in that Burnt Hills game, you remember, was on a wide receiver reverse pass to Chris Carbone. From Chris Carbone to Hector Hill. This team has done a lot of that this season. They've had fake punts work. They've had hook and laterals work. You got to think that Pat Laverio and offensive coordinator Bob Noto, they're going to have some tricks up their sleeve, maybe very early in this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they're, maybe, have the courage to bring that out in a Super Bowl. It's one thing to do in week 2. It's another thing to do it at this point in the season. But a guy we haven't mentioned yet, Vinny Sadkowicz. We talked about getting the ball outside to those guys like Matt White. I guess Vinny Sadkowicz probably, playing the best football this past 3 or 4 weeks of this season. Playing his best football, I guess, what does he have to look for against this Burnt Hills defense for him to have success?
It's really finding your spots. And really his first half against Queensbury, as much as it wasn't the game against Lansingburg where he threw for 242 yards and 6 touchdowns against 6 touchdowns on 10 completions. His first half against Queensberry was probably the most efficient he's played the entire season. He converted third downs. He found guys who found guys open on those intermediate routes, and that's what he's got to do. He's got to be able to move the chains efficiently, control the clock, convert third downs.
I thought it was important, too, for Amsterdam to be coming off a game like they just had against Queensberry, where it was a struggle offensively, it was a defensive game, they played against a rush-heavy team. Queensberry is kind of the perfect team to warm up against when you're about to play Burnt Hills. It's not the same style, but a similar style in terms of that ground and pound.
No, it's almost the equivalent of when you're warming up during a baseball game, when you're warming up to bat and you got the donut on your bat, and you take off the donut, you face one physical team. It's not as hard to go up and face another very physical team, and that's what Amsterdam will face. Basically, Burnt Hills is a quicker version of Queensberry that doesn't use that double wing. They use a little more of a single wing attack.
And now I asked you earlier, after talking about Burnt Hills being probably the most complete program in the past several years, probably the team that would have a bone of contention that is Hoosick Falls, the team that's taking on the Fonda Fultonville Braves this Saturday, and that in the Class C Super Bowl. I guess what do we look for in this one? Hoosick Falls is a bit of a juggernaut.
Yeah, Hoosick Falls has been really the last 2 years, really the last 3 years, completely untouchable. They went in last year, demolished the Braves in the playoffs. This year they have just absolutely obliterated everyone they've faced, wiped out their whole division, basically beat everybody by 40-plus points. They've rolled in their 2 playoff games, were able to pull away late from a stubborn Watervliet team, beat them 34-8. This Panthers team is so talented at so many spots, but they had a very, very, very physical game, a war of attrition against Watervliet.
Right. Tanner Williams leaves that game in the second quarter, their leading touchdown scorer this year. Brad Burns limps around for most of the second half, keeps playing. Those are their 2 main weapons. From what I'd heard, Tanner Williams might have been on crutches this past weekend. They don't know his status yet for the game. It should be interesting to see. I mean, Fonda Fultonville has to prepare as if both those guys are going to be there. But I think also going back to last year, a lot gets made of that 46-13 drubbing that they took. But 3 weeks prior, Fonda Fultonville played them. They lost 21-6. Much closer game. It was a controlled game. I don't think that this is quite the underdog matchup that people have made it out to be so far. I think the Braves, with that quick strike offense, might be able to surprise them. No,
and that's what the Braves are going to need to do. They're going to need to score points. This Hoosick Falls offense, if Williams and Burns are even at 80%, if they're playing, these 2 guys, basically they both average 15 yards a carry. They've combined for almost 50 touchdowns between them. These 2 guys are as dominant a pair as they've been as there is in Section 2 this year, and they've been complemented by Billy Pine, their junior quarterback, who came over after winning a sectional title last year in Class D with Cambridge. Pine transfers back over to Hoosick Falls, and so far this year he's done very well in replacing Mike Brewster. This is a very good Panthers team, but the Braves, they score quickly. They've got a lot of options on offense. If they can get Hoosick Falls into a shootout, anything can happen.
Right, especially with Hoosick Falls, that defense they play, that 3-5-3, is very good against the run. Wally Kowalski might struggle in this type of game, but when you only have 3 guys in your secondary, those playmakers on Fonda Fultonville, led by guys like Jarrett Ladd, there's going to be a lot of space on the outside for them to get loose and try for some big plays.
No, yeah, the onus in defending in this game for Hoosick Falls is either going to come to changing their scheme, or it's going to come to those 2 outside linebackers who are basically going to have to play slot corner. And if the Braves can spread them out enough, that might open up the rushing lanes for Kowalski.
Right, and I don't think that Hoosick Falls, coming off a season where, like you said, they've been winning by 30, 40 points minimum, I don't see them changing their style too much for this one.
No, but you talk about them winning games by 30, 40 points. That's going to be where the Braves have the chance. If you can go in, smack a team like that in the mouth early, maybe get up a touchdown or 2 early, and tell them, hey, you're in a game for the first time in a year, that's where the Braves are going to have a chance to do something here.
Right. I mean, we've said it earlier, the Braves can do that. They have that offensive attack to do it. It's really going to come down to that defense for them.
So Saturday night is a huge, huge night in area high school football. 7 o'clock, Amsterdam against Burnt Hills. That game at Shenandoah. That one will be on television, Time Warner Cable Channel 3. Then at 7:30, after some sectional soccer gets done at Stillwater, Fonda Fultonville against Hoosick Falls at Stillwater. That game at 7:30. So 2 big games, 2 games right in prime time. And we'll be back next week to recap them. And then, hey, It's going to be time for basketball season almost coming up. But until then, for Michael, I'm Adam. We're the Sideline Guys, and we'll see you next time at sidelineguys.recordernews.com.